Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to all my panelists. So we've been speaking about challenger brands since morning, and it's clear that challenger brands have, one major problem. They come into a cluttered market, they're too late, and they need to make an impression. It's simple, right? And now what do? You've come in late, and or you're bringing something new sometimes, and but there's competition that's offering something else, and you need to make a mark in this market. It's simple. And then what do? How do you reach the consumer you want to reach? Do you want to go big right in the beginning, or do you want to go, sharp, targeted, maybe a niche community that possibly will buy the kind of product that you're selling, and then go from there and take on the bigger players in whatever market that you're in. Sanchayeeta, I want to start with you because you would be having a lot of conversations with brands on a daily basis, helping them in this journey to make this decision about where do they spend their marketing money when they are starting out. When do they go big? When do they go small? And if you can start with defining, 2-3 cases that startups come to you with, and one line, how do you advise them on spending their marketing budgets?
Sure. So I think I'd really like to thank all the panelists and the speakers because I think that's a very good segue into what I'm going to be talking about. I think the basic thing that we do when we are doing the GTM for a particular brand, there are two aspects that we already always know about. The first one is that of mental availability, which is that are people familiar with you? Do you have an equity in the market? Do they trust you? I think some of these aspects also came out. The second part is physical availability. How do they get to you? How do they buy you? For challenger brands, I would not call it as a problem. I think as very nicely in just the session before, Mrinmay explained, this is also a time of opportunities. So the first thing that what we need to do is that at the end of the day, what is the ambition? Typically what happens is that you basically have to get people to be aware about you, and then they consider you and they purchase you. That's the funnel as we know about it. And initially for brands, what they have to do is that they have to take a mix of both worlds. Opportunities are many, as the earlier session and all the others also spoke about the fact that today a consumer can buy you because of the digital ecosystem and the whole retail media space, which has only increased and increased. Today a brand can very quickly get the physical availability part of it tackled. Of course, if you are, for instance, I know when I was handling Paperboat as a brand and they were taking up the Pepsis and Cokes of the world, what really mattered for them is, do they get the distribution? Are they being able to create the kind of, getting the product in the hand of the consumer in place? But the most important thing that what I have seen startups, and initially it is all about unit economics. Am I going to be able to get people to understand me, create the functionality, and pick me up? But eventually what matters is that, are they trusting me? Am I building the equity? Am I creating those deep memory structures? I mean, Mrinmay just showed a part of the Nirma pack and everybody knew about it. And that's what really matters. Am I being able to create that kind of a connect with the consumer so that he's coming back to me again and again? So over a timeline, what happens is that you start with the bottom of the funnel, but you also find that the niches that you've taken, in India is such a large country with a 1.4 billion population, if your ambition to grow larger becomes important, then you need to start going over there. You get to the middle of the funnel and the top of the funnel, and then from probably a digital approach, you start looking at what is the multimedia that I'm going to be creating. Okay. How am I going to really connect and then becoming bigger? That's the second part. So I start probably with digital performance, but branding becomes important. And how do I really, in this new age, get to consumers and connect with them? bringing in all the requirements of what are the brilliant basics of media, right? Am I giving the right weights? Am I going properly? Am I doing the right frequency, continuity? All these things are being taken care of. That's the way that I have seen
Okay.
brands moving, and also knowing that things have changed. So for instance, one of our brands, which is EV, and I'm sure from Ather also we'll be able to hear that today there is a large percentage of sales of EV bikes which are happening off Flipkart. Who would have thought of that? So therefore, those dynamics also need to be taken into account.
Got it, got it. Pranesh, if I can come to you, one of the important things that Sanchayeeta said is that trust factor, that consumers need to trust the brand. But building trust then means, you need to have a lot of ATL spend, possibly. So how does a young brand, or when does a young brand decide saying, this is the right time for me to, make a big splash? What are things that should have possibly happened in the last 1 or 2 years for that brand to make that sort of a decision? I mean, what's the kind of advice you would give?
I think for any challenger brands, it would be not fair to start a discussion in terms of media spends. Right? Because that's the easiest thing to do. The moment people have fund, they can spend crores and crores of money. And there's enough platforms for people to absorb those kind of spends. I think as challenger brand marketers, what we need to really look at is what's a business strategy? What's a brand strategy? And therefore, how does the marketing strategy evolve from that? Now, typically what happens is that you look at your business strategy, because whenever you have a challenge brand, there's an idea. So that becomes a business strategy. And we as marketers get into marketing strategy. Right? So any small change in the business strategy, basis how the business evolve, there's a whiplash effect. A small change in the business strategy will lead to a big changes in marketing strategy, in the way you look at it. What can actually hold together the entire marketing function, or how marketing contributes to business, is your brand strategy. Right? So therefore, for any challenger brands, I think we should anchor our thoughts, or spend considerable amount of time before you even get to decide where do we need to spend the money. Right? We need to say, what do we stand for? I think that's fairly established within the organization, but does the consumer know that what do you stand for? Right? And in a country like India, it's a bigger challenge than what you experience probably in a smaller markets like Australia or Singapore, where the limited audience we need to talk to. So anchoring your brand strategy is very, very important, and from there your marketing strategy has to evolve. And when you look at the brand strategy, where you are in terms of building your brand values, building your brand positioning, those things actually should take a center stage, and then your marketing strategy should play. And a startup brand, like I've read somewhere where people said, people don't buy products for quality. They buy products or the brands, assuming that will not go wrong. Therefore, you need to build the trust. Right? And therefore, two key things that I always evaluate when I'm looking at challenger brands is whether they're creating those lighthouse effects, in terms saying that, okay, there are a lot of bigger brands there, and how do you stand out as a lighthouse? By spending lots of money in the market, whether it's ATL, digital, whatever platforms you take, probably you're trying to enter into consumers' life, right? And asking them to say, okay, I am here. Instead of, we should turn the tables and say, how should people look at us? How should people perceive us? I think it's, instead of a more outward spend perspective, I think you should say the ideas that we generate as marketers should be clearly standing out, to say, put the focus back on the brand, and why should consumers actually like us or own us? That's one. Second thing is that whatever we do in terms of ideas or communication, we need not, if the consumer is indifferent to that piece of communication, that becomes a big challenge. Right? I'm okay if people say it's very good, I'm okay if people say it's very bad. You're crap, no problem. At least you made your point, saying that I'm not talking to you at least. Right? But the challenge happens for channel brands when there's very indifference. Right? If consumers do not react to either in a positive or negative to what you do in your market in terms of products, services, communication, that's a big problem that you have. And therefore, there's no clear tipping point for a brand to say, okay, I will move from, say, digital because today I don't have money and tomorrow I get a lot of money, I'll start spending big on ATL platform. There's no tipping point. Right? You need to see how is that the brand or the business is scaling up, which geographies I'm targeting. Probably I could be starting in Bangalore and say I could leverage more media than just beyond digital, right? Example say, it depends on the categories as well. Example say for an apparel brand which is starting at a SKU of say 300 rupees, it doesn't matter, right? You can start on a digital platform. But if it's a product which is say 8 lakhs, 10 lakhs, or even for matter of 1.5, 2 lakh rupees, probably people need to gain trust, and trust building for a brand takes time. Right? And the trust also is a factor of the amount of time that you spend in the market, the consistency that you have as a brand in the market. Right? Today, I could launch a multi-million-dollar TV campaign and can go quiet for next 2 years. Right? It doesn't solve because consumers are coming into the market every month, probably every quarter. In a category like automobile, we do see the journey is equally between say 6 months to 1 year, right? So you need to be in the market for top of mind. So the point that I want to make is there's no clear point or a tipping point for people to start spending on ATL. It depends upon what categories you are. Example, say for fantasy gaming, probably you could go day number 1 by launching a big media campaign because the product or the brand or service can be experienced anywhere without any problem. But imagine for a consumer durable brand, they can't do it because they need to have a retail presence, they need to have a service presence, and then they go and launch a big campaign. So till the time that is not established for a challenger brand, you can't go ahead with that.
Absolutely, right? I mean, I think it's when you're in that user acquisition is so key to establishing your brand, then you have to spend on IPLs of the world and things like that to make your brand known before you possibly do other stuff. Whereas it could be different for brands that don't have to, don't have the app economy background to them. I would like to come to you, Ankit, is yours, you have built the trust, right? Titan has all the trust of consumers. But I still want to know, how are your priorities starkly different possibly from challenger brands, and therefore the innovations you have to do to still, I mean, when a new brand comes in, I know a lot of people who just want to try a new product or a new brand just because, hey, this is new in the market. And there seems to be, quite a bit of people there, and brand loyalty is kind of shaky these days. You look for things online, you're served with a new brand product you've never heard of, like, let me give it a shot. So you have that challenge. So how do you tackle that? What are innovations that you do?
Sure. I think just for the sake of clarity, I represent the startup side of Titan. My 2 stints, one is with Tanaira, which was into saris. We came into a market which was largely unorganized and a challenger brand to the unorganized market, so to say. The second is perfumes, which is again, we came in the country when perfume penetration was less than 7%, so to say. So people could afford a car, but they will not buy a perfume. So we have to build trust where perhaps the category was also not existing there. I think, to your question, 2 parts to your question, how do you build trust and how do you respond to someone who has come and said a lot of things as a challenger brand. I think first on the trust piece, I think trust always comes at a trade-off for something. And that's the trade-off that you should be willing to make as a business, as a brand. If you are in any of the category, if you are saying that I'm serving you fresh, and there is too much of noise around you, so to say, from the challenger brands or from, if you're in if you're in a category which is a low entry barrier category, we spoke about, we heard Billa Opus speaking, it's a high, entry barrier category, so to say. But perfumes is a very low entry barrier. Technically, anybody can get into it. But again, I think just to give you an example, we never use the term luxury in our perfumes, okay? And without calling out names, brands these days, even a 400 rupee brand says that we are a luxury perfume brand. And it's a very much misnomer. And so much so that in the category luxury perfume, if you go by just the keyword ranking of that on marketplaces as a platform, it's ranking much more higher. But we as a brand have chosen not to bid on that. Again, trust versus trade-off. We as a brand have chosen not to put that as part of our A plus content or listing content, etc., because it is misleading. And as a category leader, we don't want to mislead the consumer. We want to build the category and educate the consumer out there. So yeah, I think you stay the course, you stay what you stand for, what you want to build, and don't get frittered with the noises. Noises comes, noises goes. And the right noise also should make money, why not? So let that also grow. But rest all is just the noise, so just ignore it.
Got it. Varun, I think that's a great segue to the question I have for you is, you talk a lot about CTV and advertising on CTV. So, and that's a place where hopefully there is not as much noise as there is on any, social media app with, hazar ads bombarding you. Every, second story you scroll by, you have another ad. Or TV channels, where you have hazar ads again. So, is CTV perhaps a good place for a startup brand or a challenger brand to invest money in the initial phase to reach just the right kind of audience that it wants to reach and still have that big screen experience and that it offers to a consumer and not an ad on a small screen? Your thoughts?
Okay, so first thing I would say what Pranesh had mentioned in terms of you should never jump into media budget. So similar manner, you should never jump into a device or platform that, okay, this is what I want to do. I hear from many marketers when I meet on a daily basis that I want to work on XYZ, an OTT, I want to be on there. I mean, that is not supposed to be a marketing strategy. I mean, the way I look at it, right? What it means is where first, as a brand, you need to understand who are your potential audience, what are the kind of consumption pattern do they have, and based on that, it should be technically a reverse engineering of how to reach or which platform to be consumed based on that. So now, content TV perspective, change is the only constant thing in most of us, and we have to either be part of the change or disappear. I mean there is no option for any of us to adapt or to that particular thing. So CTV definitely going to be the large, I would say, a platform which going to technically control the whole advertising space. Because of two reasons. I've mentioned that in my previous session in detailed manner, but in terms of audience, now talking about innovation and tradition per se, though when CTV have started, I mean the initial penetration we've seen a youth, high class, I mean NCC, A1, A2 kind of TG, metros being the platform which had the highest penetration, but today even a tier 2, tier 3 cities and mom or an aunt or a family, I mean, they, like, if I want to put in my personal experience, my mom used to watch series during my school days in terms of 7 to 7:30 channel A, 7:30 to 8 o'clock channel B, then again shifting throughout around 3-4 hours on remote. But today it is not, because consumer behavior have changed in terms of I don't want to watch when I'm supposed to. I want to watch when I want. I mean, I need the convenience at my fingertips, because that's what the consumer want, right? And that's the reason why we see a huge penetration on OTTs in a large scale of. It's not just the youth content. It is the a Saas Bahu which is on a OTT is also consumed heavily, just because I have a busy day. I'm back at home around 8 o'clock. I want to watch when I have time to consume this content. So consumer perspective, it's more demanding, it's more convenient oriented. Hence, it also reverse coming back to the brand or the whole platform in terms of how do you understand these behavior and then still be relevant in terms of creating a method of engagement based on that, right? So first, as the whole dynamics of consumer consumption pattern have changed, the initial thing is how to understand that, how to enable and then adapt. So that's where the brand comes to play in terms of how to adapt to the right platform to get into that way of learning and engage. So it is never CTV or mobile or a desktop or anything. It's about how you identify audience, how to identify the behavior, and based on each brand have their audience, which are again depending on the objective, the audience segments change. So understanding what is that, again quoting Pranesh in terms of one, who are your potential segment of audience, what is my challenge as a brand, what I have, and what is the outcome, what I'm looking at. That is what defines the whole approach.
Absolutely. Yes.
I think what CTV has done is at least to give an additional device to challenger brands. TV was totally unaffordable for challenger brands. Today with CTV coming into place, you have a bigger screen with sharper targeting to go there. Right? Today if I want to target a premium customer, I know the kind of screen sizes he spoke about in the earlier one. Is a clear metric to say that this guy is a key target for me, and therefore I could be part of his consuming experience.
Absolutely, and solving the whole measurement part of it, which been, as I mentioned,
That's a big part we still need to solve for. I think we need to go beyond impressions to say what is it actually leading for us.
I think, Sanchayeeta, I want to come to you, with that, is budgets are also limited for challenger brands, right? Unless, okay, you're funded and you're just willing to throw money at media, and Pranesh rightly said, and I think the theme here is that don't splurge unnecessarily. That seems to be the theme. But my question is, there are brands that do spend, and they possibly need to spend in that initial phase on large, media spends. How do you then help a brand understand, did this spend make sense? How do you measure at the end of the day? And what sort of methods are there? And how do you make sense of huge spends for young brands?
So I think, thank you. So I spoke about mental availability and physical availability, but I think the point that we are saying as Kara and Densu is that we now need to move into algorithmic availability. And I'll tell why that is important, because like he rightly said, it's not about how much I spend, but as a brand, what does it do for me from the business outcomes that I'm going to be generating. So that's the part of the algorithm that we need, that we normally do, to say that, hey, it all starts with your business objectives. What are the kind of numbers that you want to do? What is the ambition that you have? And therefore, can I find the relationship between the media input that I'm putting in and the business outcome that you're going to get to? I mean, summarizing all of this, I would say that is one part that we really, really look at. So therefore, it's not about how much you are spending, but how you are spending and what it is doing to your business. The other part, why we really need to look about it, is that at the end of the day, we really are in an algorithmic era, right? So therefore, whether the way that consumers are consuming content and brands are therefore being able to meet them on that platform, on that media, you really need to bring that equation into account. And the trick actually, whether you're a challenger brand or you're a mass brand, because money always needs to bring out ROI. So therefore, where should I go and what that will do? That is the part that we really need to move into, and that's what we've been doing very strongly for all our brands.
Yes.
I think one of the, if you recollect when YouTube started offering advertising in India, they said don't spend too much on print. So you invest some part of that investments on print into TV, because probably you're oversaturating your spends on a certain media. Today it's true even for digital. Or a certain point of spend, there's no point in spending on digital as well, right? So you need to see what really works for you. And if there's saturation happening where you're not able to get new customers, then obviously you need to look at new platforms for getting those customers on board.
Yeah, in fact, I just want to build on that. See, I think we were in an era where we would really, it was about what we said, one-way communication, broadcast era. Then we went into this whole phase, and I think challenger brands have been guilty of that. There was significant amount of money which was all in precision, one-on-one communication, only doing performance, without forgetting about what is it that I need to do from branding, because I have to reach the mind, I have to reach the hand. And therefore, how do you find the right equation? The engine that is making it work best for you is what you really need to think about.
Ankit, we have a few seconds left, but I want to touch upon retail media, and I'm guessing that is something that's very important. I mean, for the perfumes that you sell in particular, and we're talking about innovation. But also quick com, like I think in Mridmay's case, he had that extra slide where he said, in the time span of making the presentation, there's a new channel again. So retail channels, e-com, quick com, the kind of role that they play, and how much do you prioritize spending? I mean, just not just making your SKUs available there, but even advertising on retail media.
I think what Mrinmay was saying about the change of the slide, I think very soon you will see the next addition to that slide is retail. And retail is not going anywhere, and that's the moat which soon people will latch onto. It's already like if you see Trent, Trent is very very clear that I don't want to have anything outside. From outside as a brand. I don't want to go to any of the quick commerce or e-commerce also. I'll go EBO route. When you go EBO route, you get tremendous, powerful inciting to your consumer. You own the data end to end. You own the experience also end to end. So, I think retail is the next wave, which is, we had a wave of retail, then the marketplaces emerged. Now quick commerce is emerging. I personally see retail coming back, very, very strongly. But obviously it will not be for a lot of challenger brands because retail has its own overheads, so to say, and it's not easy to scale at that level as compared to a quick commerce or a marketplace. But that is certainly there. I think in retail, if you're talking about the media piece for retail, I think it's the there's a lot of personalization which has kicked in and it's here to stay. And there's a lot of mingling of online versus offline, and it's become a very omni-channel experience even for the retailers. So like if I have a apparel brand, I'm still there on the app. I'm giving the nudges through the app in a very personalized manner to the consumer, piquing his interest to come and visit me at the store, and he tries me at the store, finally does the purchase, and then again, find something else on the app. So it's a very interconnected, and it's no more linear journey, so to say.
Got it. I want to ask the three of you one question. I know time's up, but I'll take a minute. In short, just numbers I want. What is the kind of ratio of media mix that you would suggest to a challenger brand that's possibly, just starting out 1 year in, spending on TV versus digital? What's your, without the caveats of it depends on the category, we will assume all of those caveats and then just tell me, numbers, one ratio.
Such a difficult question. No, I think depending on, actually if you have a digital ecosystem, then definitely you would put probably 100% of your spends on digital and see how you can actually straddle the entire funnel from the digital perspective. Depends. I mean, if you are a brand which is only talking about something which is really, really at the, a very low-end consumer mass base, then I would say put 100% on TV or 100% on print. There are no standard answers. It's really about which part of the funnel and how you want to go about it is what I would say.
Pranesh, I'm not going to ask about Ather, but what would you tell your competitor? Where should they spend their money?
But you put a rider, so I can't say it depends. It depends upon how you're scaling up as a brand. But I still need to say that. I read somewhere say that whenever you ask a question to marketer, if he says it depends, he appears to be very intelligent. Typically, if the category is very commoditized, then probably, and the ASP of the product is very less, probably you look at more of digital. That's where you don't need to build a lot of trust. People are okay to experiment those stuff, and therefore you index your spends on digital. But for traditional categories, I think I would go with 50 on TV, because as a challenger brand, you still need to build in that top of mind awareness. That's very critical for us as a brand to grow the revenue and also at the cost of profitability at some times. But on a year, in a year, if you're able to control your customer acquisition cost, I think you should still put your money on TV. Because if you start just focusing on the performance marketing part, as she said, you're just squeezing the part which already exists with you, but not bringing new customer. Therefore, if you bring in new customer, then 50 on TV, probably 30 on digital, and 20 which is on other medias. 50, 30, 20.
Got it. Ankit?
I think I will say, I don't know why you said TV, but if your question was more about ATL versus digital, I agree with what Pranesh said. It depends upon how you're building the top funnel. Certainly, while I'm seeing a decline of TV, so to say, especially for brands which are challenger brands, but I feel there's a lot of new ATL versions which are coming up. There are fantastic options in out of home which are there. If you have let's say for example, if you have a premium offering, airport serves a great out of home medium. So to say, there are digital TV screens at multiple places. So I personally feel that out of home is much more out there and in place, and TV viewership is very, very contextual in terms of which audience you're targeting, what kind of a product per se. And I think all these problems which I just said is getting solved to a large degree with connected TVs, so to say, and the confidence is increasing as we speak.
A ratio then, ATL, BTL?
A ratio would be, it would be, I agree, it would be somewhere around 50-50, 50 ATL and 50 digital. And digital also, 4 years back it was inexpensive, it's now as expensive as any other ATL medium, so to say, if you're spending at scale. So it's just a way of saying it is digital, but it is as much ATL.
But just to add to that, what Ankit mentioned in terms of ATL perspective, today if you look at everything is changing into digital. Like as you take an example of airport, DOH, digital out of home. Now that's served programmatically. If you look at TV, it's connected TV, or the replacement of radio, which is in audio apps and etc. So the way it is changing is everything is getting connected.
It's very integrated.
Things digital, guys. And with that, I think we'll end. I used the 5 extra minutes that Mrinmay gave us. So thank you, everyone.